We got all these all-star athletes on our team. And we're saying, why the heck are you always 3 steps behind me? Why are you always waiting for me to make the next decision or hand out the next task or come up with the next idea? We get so frustrated. And what we realize is like, actually, we haven't told them where they're going.
Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the eCommerce Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. And today we're talking about operations, operational constraints, operational bottlenecks, issues that you need to fix if you want to scale. Because here's what I believe. Most agency owners like me, most brand owners like you're really good at product, you're really good at marketing, or scale or growth, but operations, maybe that's the part of the business you don't want to think about a whole lot. But I guarantee you, without operational systems, processes, the right people, all of that good stuff, you will hit a ceiling, and we're going to bust through that ceiling on this episode today. So I want to welcome to the show Miss Jhana Lee. She's the founder of SpyGlass Ops. More on that in a second. Jhana, how's it going? And welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brett. I'm really excited to be here. It's going fantastic. It's spring here in Salt Lake City. No complaints.
Springtime in. I
know,
love
I'm ready for it.
Springtime. And so Jhana and I got to hang out at an event recently hosted by one of my business partners, Tom Shipley, called DealCon. Jhana was rocking the stage talking about how to form good integrations if you're doing M&A, but it was all around ops. And so your company, Jhana, SpyGlass Ops, you guys help with your transformational operations company, right? So you help with consulting, recruiting, coaching. You help 7- and 8-figure brands and businesses get unstuck and scale from an operations standpoint. Can you talk a little more about that, a little more about your background there?
Yeah, I think you covered it beautifully. So my background is as a COO, right? I was in that second in command operator position for multiple different successful startups. And that's where I really learned the tools of the trade. And then I had the opportunity to be an operations coach in this coaching program that had hundreds of startup owners in it. And that was really the big unlock for me, Brett, because I had hundreds of businesses like pulling back the kimono, so to speak, and just showing me the real of like what's going on behind the scenes, what's not working, what's breaking, where are they struggling as they're scaling through 7, 8, 9 figures. And so I got to just compile all this data around what are the common patterns and themes that hold startup founders back from achieving not just like the revenue and the profit goals that they have for the business, but also like the lifestyle, the freedom goals, creating a version of their company that can actually run without them. And so that is really what I became passionate about. And 4 years ago, I started the company to help entrepreneurs go through that critical stage of growth so that the company can start to become an asset, a machine that is going to run with or without them. And they're able to take that to a successful multi-8-figure, 9-figure exit. They're able to take that to a lifestyle business that produces passive cash flow. But ultimately, it's around unlocking the founder so that they're able to achieve the best version of their business and the best version of their life.
It's so great. And yeah, allowing the founder, the visionary, you've got brilliant ideas. And again, you're a product person, a marketing person, salesperson, whatever. For me, I'm all about like setting vision, forming partnerships. I like sales. I like solving interesting marketing problems. I'm not an ops guy. I can respect a good system. I can spot a good system. I'm not going to sit down and design one. And at least I'm not going to do it and enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And so I've had the privilege of working with 2 amazing COOs throughout the journey of OMG Commerce, in our path to multiple 7 figures. But so I see the value there, and I'm really excited to unpack this and give some insights to our listeners. But would love to hear from you. What are some of the mistakes, bottlenecks, issues that you see founders running into when it comes to ops?
Oh my gosh, how long we got? Okay, so I would say that statistically, right? So we start all of our client relationships with a company-wide operational audit. So we've actually looked at the data and we've run these numbers. And about 80 to 90% of the time, the key and critical bottlenecks holding startup founders back fall into one of 4 categories. The first category is strategic vision, meaning they don't actually know where they're trying to take the company or how exactly they're going to get to their revenue and profit goals.
Growth is our vision.
Exactly. More better, right? Like that's not strategy. It doesn't offer your team a direction to run in. And it ultimately leaves the founder pretty directionless in terms of what decisions to make and what to drive towards. So a lack of strategic vision, or what's an interesting one that we see, Brett, is that they'll have a strategic vision that is totally out of alignment with their personal goals, right? So like my personal goal is that I want a lifestyle business that's going to run without me, but the version of my company that I'm building is one where the product is totally reliant on me. Nothing can move forward without me. And I want to double revenue in the next 12 months, right? It's like these things are at odds with each other. And so we often have to hold up the mirror and say, which do you want more? And then let's build a roadmap to get you to that. And let's adjust your business and your plan for growing your business so it actually gets you to the goals that you have outside of just work and revenue. So that's a big one that we see fairly often. The second big one is a lack of an operator, which should not be a surprise to anyone, right? And this is why we layered in operations recruitment as one of our core offers, because either you've got somebody who's been in that role and is now no longer cutting it, in which case we have to figure out, can they grow and can the business afford the time that it's going to take for them to grow into the COO that you need? Or you do not have that person. Maybe you think you do, right? Maybe it's your wife. Maybe it's your best friend. Maybe it's a fractional COO that we hired off of LinkedIn, but are they actually the person that you need in the role? Yes or no? And we need to go out and find that person. Because like you said, Brett, you can respect operations, but you respect it enough to not touch it and to know the value of having someone who is an expert who can actually do the work.
Yeah. And if the goal is getting that, building that machine that consistently produces results and spits off cash, you got to think about ops. And I really like the way you laid that out. And I think it's one of those scenarios where we all do want more. We all do want to grow. But what will get you there is not what got you here. What got you here won't get you there. The title of that famous book. And I think that's true, both in terms of your systems or lack thereof, your processes, but also that operator, right?
Yes.
The COO or the operator that got you to 5 million or to 10 million is probably not the same operator that will get you to 100 million. Yeah. And maybe because there people can grow, people can change and evolve, but generally speaking, you're gonna have to either upgrade that person and upskill them, or find someone who can grow you to 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, and that type of thing. So really great. So I love the way you kind of identify that. So as you kind of lay that out, where do you see people kind of in that let's call it 10 to $50 million range? I know it's going to be different depending on the business category. Brands, that can still be a pretty lean team. Agencies, that's a pretty big team. What are some of the hurdles that they have to overcome? What are some of the systems they need to put in place or people they need to put into place to really become that operational machine?
Yeah, so this really comes down to a couple of core categories. And the big one that I see in that 10 to 50 million range is that it comes down to leadership. And not just can you as a CEO founder become a bigger, better version of yourself and the leader that your company needs next from you? Can you step fully out of, like our executive coach calls the 3 levels of entrepreneurship, right? The first level is producer, where you're just showing up, you're doing everything. Okay, we probably got out of that a while ago. We stepped out of that level. The next level is leader. Great. So now can we be a leader that is able to delegate tasks, delegate action, align a team, drive them towards a vision? That's the leadership level. And then the third level is visionary. Can we actually hand off day-to-day leadership of our team to managers, to department heads, to people who are not only able to manage tasks, but actually make decisions on our behalf? And when we're able to create that, we get to step into the third level, which is visionary, right? Where our role, our highest value work, is to make decisions and set strategy on behalf of our company, and to have the vision, to hold the vision, to keep the team aligned around the vision, but to hand off the actualization and the execution of that vision to a team that we've put in place that we trust.
So hard to do, man.
So hard.
As someone who I am a visionary. I'm not the integrator. And so I do like setting the vision, casting the vision, but giving up control of the vision or
Yeah.
delegating decision making can be quite difficult. Before we get there, though, I do want to maybe step back for a second and talk about how do you clarify or what and I've got some thoughts here on what we've done as an agency and some work we've done even recently internally. But you talk about the strategic vision, and the strategic vision is not more, more, do it better, do it more. That's not it. That's not clear at all.
Right.
How do you coach people, or what advice do you give them to say, okay, it may be clear in your head, but the way you're saying it is not clear to your team. How do you coach people in making that vision clear?
Yeah, 100%. So the first thing is that we have to clarify we have to answer two questions: what and how, right? What is, what does success look like? What is the finish line for this business? What are the North Star goals and metrics that we are going to drive towards? So what looks like revenue, looks like profit, looks like a target valuation that you want to exit at. It's the finish line of the race that you are running. If you don't have a finish line, how the heck are you going to run the race, right? And so what we often see challenges around the what is that, I talked to a dude at a mastermind who exited for $50 million. So now I want to exit for $50 million. The challenge
that's the vision.
That's the vision. Million. I did it, right? But the problem is that 50 million means nothing. That is a totally arbitrary number. It's not attached to any deeper meaning. It's not attached to any quality of life you're trying to create. It is throwing a dart at a dartboard, picking a number and saying,
or
that
the value you're going to be generating and
totally.
offering to the marketplace to be worth 50 million. It says nothing.
100%. So we pick these arbitrary finish lines. And then what happens? It gets hard to run the race. And so we end up just switching the finish line and picking a different race. And we end up just pivoting and pivoting and pivoting and creating all these different sets of goals because we don't actually have fundamental and intrinsic conviction or attachment to those goals. Or even worse, we end up hitting those goals and then we feel nothing because it didn't mean anything to begin with. Right. And so that's the existential crisis that we have to coach our clients through, where they're like, wow, I really wanted to get to 7 figures. I really wanted to get to 8 figures. And now I'm here and I'm more trapped by my business than ever. I'm falling out of love with my business. I've never felt less free. I'm not doing any of the things that I wanted to do or that I thought I could do by the time I reached this. Why the hell am I doing this? And do I need to just burn this thing down and walk away? Right. So strategic vision, again, is like, let's define the what, and let's define the what against what actually matters to you as a founder, as an individual, as a human, and not just as an entrepreneur. And then let's make sure that the target you're setting for your business is actually going to get you what you want. So that's the first part of strategic vision.
So good. I'll share a couple of insights from some work we've done recently here at OMG, because I really believe that, setting the mission and vision and things like that, it really shows the team like this is who we are and how we're going to show up. And this is very clearly where we're going. And so I'm a big fan of statements and simple statements that carry meaning and that can help make decisions and help guide you. And so a couple that we've leaned into as an agency, and then I want to talk about the thing called the V2 Mom. I'm curious if you heard of that. Talk about that in a second. But the first thing that we've leaned into here over the last couple of years is we want to be the most trusted, most loved digital marketing agency that feels like an in-house team. Now, that may seem a little bit like a strange statement. Most trusted, most loved, that feels kind of mushy. But here's what I believe that is tied to that. That trust piece, that ties back to competence, right? In the agency world, people want agencies they can trust and that they trust your expertise and they feel like, hey, if I'm getting your feedback on something, I can count on it, I can believe it, I can take it to the bank, that type of thing. The most loved piece is one I figured I would get a lot of pushback on, but actually as I've showed this to like PE firms that I know and others are like, dude, I actually kind of like it because, and we've heard this even from clients that are leaving OMG, they're like, we love you guys. Like we love your team, but we're leaving for this, that, or the other. Our team is, we sold or whatever. And so, but then also feels like an in-house team. And so feels like an extension of the team. We've had people say to us, hey, your team feels like my team. And so we crafted that in such a way that should guide, like, how are we going to respond to emails? How are we going to show up to meetings? How are we going to respond in Slack because of those things? And so that's one of the statements. Curious if how that strikes you. Yeah. Or anything that sparks there.
I love that so much. It is reminiscent of an exercise that we walk our clients through. EOS calls it the 3 uniques. We call it the golden triad. And it is the 3 core characteristics that differentiate you from your competitors? Why would somebody choose to work with you? And the example I always give is think about McDonald's versus a 5-star Michelin restaurant, right? So here's the vision statement I so often hear, Brett, and especially in the agency space. Oh my gosh, we want to be the best, right? We want to be the best agency for e-com brands. Okay. But what is the best?
Yeah. Right.
That means nothing to me. McDonald's is the best, but so is a Michelin star restaurant, right? McDonald's is the best at being fast, cheap, and easy. Those are their 3 uniques. A Michelin star restaurant is the best at being a luxury white glove experience, farm to table, whatever, right? So what are the 3 uniques that guide your business, that differentiate you from others? What I heard you say was loved, trusted, feels like an extension of your in-house team. Cool. What's amazing about that is that now we get to go through our entire client happiness journey, and anything that does not directly drive love, trust, or seamless integration, we don't do it. We don't do it. We don't have to do it because it's not why clients choose to work with us. And we get to become the best at those 3 things because we're not trying to be the best at everything else.
Yeah.
And that's where most agencies and brands get stuck, is that we're too diluted in who we serve and how we serve them uniquely well. We try and be everything for everyone, and then we end up being nothing for no one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can do anything, you can be anybody, your company can be anything, but it can't be everything, right?
Be everything.
You've got to choose, you got to select. So I'm curious, we actually went through this process. Actually, our current COO is the one that turned me on to this, called the V2 Mom: vision, values, methods, obstacles, and measures. So I think this was actually designed by Salesforce and marketing off there. It's really cool though. So like set your visions, like this is where we're going, clearly what we just talked about, your values. So this is what we believe about ourselves and what we will or won't do to get us there. Then your methods are like, these are the things we're going to do in all these departments, high level. Obstacles, these things are standing in our way. And then measures, these are clear targets that we're setting for ourselves in all these key areas. So it's been really great as we crafted that, shared that with the team. I think it's, I've already heard like it sparked some interesting discussions, especially around the measures, because we've got this like 50% profitability target within each department. And it's triggering everybody to look at like, hey, how is that going to impact the profitability of the department, right? Because I know we got this 50% target. So I don't know that the actual structure of the strategy really matters. Sure. It's way more about, do you have it? Does it make sense? And is it guiding the team?
Yes, 100%. And that's such a key, that final piece is the point, right? Because what you just said, Brett, like you've got this incredible vivid vision in your mind. You as the founder know exactly what that finishing line is, exactly how you want to get there. But if you haven't shared it with your team in a way that they not only see it as clearly as you see it, but also understand how they can uniquely contribute towards it, what you end up doing is disempowering your team to be proactive. Because now, again, no all-star athlete can run a race if you don't tell them where the finish line is.
Right.
And so we got all these all-star athletes on our team. We're saying, why the heck are you always 3 steps behind me? Why are you always waiting for me to make the next decision or hand out the next task or come up with the next idea? We get so frustrated. And what we realize is like, actually, we haven't told them where they're going. So how the heck could they help us get there? How could they walk alongside us as opposed to behind us if they have no idea what to be proactive and what to drive towards? So no, the framework really doesn't matter. EOS has a great one. V2 Mom, love it. We have our own, right? We call it the navigational chart. It's less about whether it's the right framework and more around, are you being consistent with it? And then are you repeating it and coming back to it constantly with your team? It takes the average person 7 to 12 times of hearing something before it actually sinks into their brain. So we say it once and then we're like, cool, did that. Everyone's got the vision. Everyone knows where we're going. Our job becomes to be the chief repeating officer. We say this again and again. We articulate the vision and the values and the goals and the metrics and all of these things again and again and again. And to us, we feel like crazy people because we've repeated ourselves 100 times and how can they not get it? And when you feel that way, I can promise you your team is only just starting to get it. Keep going.
So good. It's so good. And I've heard that forever in the marketing world, like just about the time you're sick of hearing an ad or hearing a message, only then is the market even beginning to pay attention, right?
Totally.
And it's sort of similar with internal communication as well. Like you got to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it before people even start to get it. And so really great. Well, let's talk people for a minute, because I'm a firm believer. This is true in the agency space, also true in the brand space. Any business, you're only as good as the people that you have on board. And I was listening to a podcast, founders podcast that I love, and they were talking about Steve Jobs and maybe Elon Musk, or maybe somebody else. They were talking about how they don't worry about overpaying for great talent, because what they've found in certain industries, this may be a little bit different depending on your industry, but Steve Jobs said, hey, the best talent, they may be two or three times more expensive, but their work isn't 2 or 3 times better. It's 10 times better, 100 times better, the output. And so I don't worry about that. I'm getting the absolute best of my team. Now, everybody's on their own journey. And so finding the right person for you isn't going to be what Steve Jobs was necessarily looking for. But how do you coach people on finding the right people, when to identify that they need to hire? And then also would love to hear any hiring tips that you have, because I think this is something that scaling businesses are often pretty bad at.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh. So this pillar of team is probably where we do the most amount of work with our clients, because again, it actually becomes the deal breaker. Systems, not the deal breaker. Strategy, not the deal breaker. Do you have the right people in the right roles, executing the right things and running in the right direction? Without that, your business will never be able to scale past you. Without that, you will be that point of escalation. You will become the system where every decision has to be yours. Every idea has to be yours. Every sign off and every task needs your eyes on it, and every quality assurance, right? Like if you are feeling stuck running the day-to-day of your business right now, I can almost guarantee you a root cause bottleneck is team. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean the solution is we have to go out, fire everyone, and then just double all of our salaries, and that will fix the problem.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
What we most often see is that clients will have incredible team members on the bus, but what we haven't done is created an A-player environment. We have A players,
great,
but we haven't invited them to bring all that they are capable of to the table, right? We haven't given them a clear strategic vision that they can be proactive and innovative and creative and run towards. We haven't empowered them so that they feel confident in solving their own problems. They have the critical thinking skills to do it, and they know what they're authorized to make decisions around versus not. We haven't given them the right systems and technology so that they can be efficient and effective in their role. We're having them run around, chasing down information, picking up dropped balls, putting out fires that didn't need to exist to begin with. And so we're wasting all of their time playing defense and doing all this low value work instead of doing the really high value, high leverage things that you actually paid them for, right? So my number one pro tip around team is that before you go out and just get better people, make sure that you have created an environment where your current people are able to bring their best to the table. And what that fundamentally comes down to is us as leaders. Us as the founder, and then the leaders that we put in place to, again, manage that frontline team. Do our leaders know how to build and manage A players and manage a high performance team environment?
Yeah, sometimes you don't have A players on your team because you're not ready for them, right? You've not done the work to make your company attractive for A players, or where A players can shine. And I actually was thinking about football while you were laying that out. Honestly, I'm a Chiefs football fan, longtime Chiefs fan from Kansas City. And they've had several situations over recent years where they'll have a wide receiver that'll leave and go somewhere else. They don't do very good, and they come back, and then they're on the Chiefs. They're amazing, right? And it's because you got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, and you got Andy Reid who's helping call plays. You got a system that's a winning system. And so maybe a receiver that really sucks for another team, you put them in the Chiefs environment and they're going to shine because of all the things around them. And so I think that's one of the things we got to keep in mind. The key is not just paying more for talent. That just means you're guaranteed to have more money going out the door. It could work. It's not just about hiring a talent. It's about having the system where they're going to shine and the environment where they're going to shine. So what are some of the tips you lay out there for business owners, founders to say, am I ready for A players? And if not, what do I need to do to get ready?
Yeah, great question. So I would offer a reframe, which is you
Please.
probably already have A players. The question is,
Yeah,
what are you lacking that's inviting them or
That's great.
not to bring it to the table,
The
right?
problem may be you, not the team in place at the company.
Correct. Yes. So, right, there are four core HR processes that I think every team needs to have to be able to consistently attract and retain A player talent. You need your hiring process, your onboarding process, which is absolutely key. Do not skip onboarding. You need your high performance management, right? So that's ongoing management and growth coaching for the people on your team. And then you need firing. How do we systematically either manage people up if there's underperformance, or manage them out, where we determine they're not the right fit and we get them off the bus? These things need to happen systematically. What I often see happen is they're happening organically, right? We're hiring by dropping a job description on Facebook and then hiring the first person that comes along because we needed this person 3 months ago. And I really just need this person and you seem smart and competent, right? Not a proven system, not going to get you the A player most of the time. Onboarding, we skip entirely. We just throw them in the deep end and we say they're an A player. They should learn how to swim. Truly, a strong onboarding process will 3x your average employee retention and increase your average employee productivity by 72%. And that has nothing to do with the caliber of people that you're hiring and onboarding. That just comes down to whether you are onboarding them effectively or not. Hiring, onboarding, growth coaching, right? Managing. This is the area where we get to turn our B players into A players. This is where we're creating an environment that invites them to be their best or not. Are we tapping into their intrinsic motivators? Are we creating an environment of clearly defined accountability and radical ownership? Are we paying our people fairly with scalable compensation plans? Have we defined clear and exact roles so people know what is my job and what is not my job? There's like a whole checklist, Brett. I could even send it to your group. I've got
that'd be amazing.
8 core pillars of what goes into a high performance A playing environment. And I'm happy to share that with everyone, because just by implementing those 8 things within your existing business, your existing team, you don't even have to pay them any more than you're currently paying them. Right. I promise you will get a productivity increase of a minimum of 2x, because that's just how big of a deal it is when you start turning on a high performance environment.
Yeah, it's so good. And I want to kind of go back to something I said a minute ago, just to clarify. The reason I shared the Steve Jobs quote of "I don't care if I pay 2 or 3x times for an employee because they're going to be 10 or 100 times more valuable." That wasn't about salary. That was more about the right person can unlock things. But what I think is also really interesting about this environment right now is that there's a lot of A players out there. There's a lot of great talent out there, and you can get them for a reasonable rate, like a good competitive salary. It's not the insanity that was kind of mid-pandemic when everything was just off the rails. It's kind of more of a normal job market to a certain degree, and so there is good talent out there that you can find. So would love to have that checklist. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll share that with everybody. But I also like the way you laid that out. So hiring, onboarding, ongoing coaching, and then firing. It's got to be systematic. That's to follow a process. But I think what most people will do are like, hey, you're good, so come on board and figure stuff out. Watch this person, watch that person. You'll get it.
Yes.
Imagine if going back to a football example. Imagine if that happened there, right? That doesn't happen. You bring on a player, you get them indoctrinated in what you do. They immediately go to their position coach. They go to all these practices. They're watching film. They're constantly being evaluated. Everything is thought of, and obviously we're not quite like a professional sports team, but we need to be more like one, right? If we want a performance-based culture, we could probably learn a lot from that structure. So
yeah, I love that. I love that.
I want to talk a little bit about hiring, just because I think that's something that is intimidating to people. We screw it up so often. I can think about a couple of really bad mistakes that I've made as a business owner when it comes to hiring. But what are some of the I mean, we all do, right? But what are some of the hiring tips, insights, processes you recommend? Should I go with a recruiter or no recruiter? How am I going to find the right talent?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of best practices when it comes to hiring, especially because for some positions or many positions, Brett, your clients are hiring remote team members, right? Which is amazing. It means we get to tap into like international job markets and all of these things. And also overwhelming because when we launch our average, ops COO hiring funnel, we can get anywhere from 500 to 1,000 applications. So how do we whittle that down, right? I always say that a strong hiring funnel is like a magnet. What does a magnet do? A magnet attracts, right? It attracts your ideal candidate avatar, right? You're a marketer, right? If we wanted to build a marketing funnel, what would we start with? We would start with our ideal client avatar. Who is this person? What do they think about at night? What drives them? What motivates them? What do they want? Let's build that for our ideal candidate. I call the tool that we use for this the job scorecard, right? We have to define success in the role, and then we build a hiring funnel that is messaged towards that person and is designed to be a magnet that will attract them through our process so that by the time they get to the end of our hiring process, we have COOs who have like 20 years experience being like, this was the most incredible hiring process I've ever gone through. I'm so excited to work with your client. When do I get to have my next interview? Do you guys have any other job opportunities available, right? Like you want them to be so excited because you have built this just for them. What else does a magnet do? A magnet repels, right? So this funnel should be so specific and so fine-tuned that someone who is not your ideal candidate will self-select out. They literally will just stop. They'll stop going through the process. So while we may get 500 COO applications on our average job description, by the time our process is done and we're actually looking, like we're looking at applications, we're looking at resumes, we're looking at the top 20 to 30 for that role because we have such a robust process that it will literally kick out 95% of the candidates that apply because they're not the right fit. And it would literally be a waste of me and my team's time to have any sort of conversation with them or to spend a minute looking at their resume. So if you're going for a remote job market where you're getting overwhelmed by just sheer volume, rely on the process. Let the process kick out 95% of people so that you're only focused on the 5% that could really be that ideal candidate you're looking for.
It's so good. It's so good. I love that, the job scorecard and really thinking about, how am I going to position this so that I get the job done, so that it meets its objectives, right? But so that I'm attracting the right person, repelling the wrong person. Really good. And again, I think, a lot of us that listen to this are marketers, or, if you own a brand, you're probably good at marketing, but you don't really put your marketing hat on when you're crafting that job scorecard or looking at attracting talent. But you kind of should be, right? There's quite a few parallels there. It's the same thing, isn't it?
It's the same. Humans be humans, right? And it's a marketing funnel. Your hiring funnel is a marketing funnel for your ideal candidate.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. Any other specific tips you can give on the hiring process? What should that look like? Should you outsource it? Should you do it yourself? How many interviews should you have? And I know there's all kinds of conditional statements there, but any other tips on the hiring process that you'd recommend?
Yeah. So we have a 8-step hiring process. I can walk through it very quickly if you would like, but not to get too deep into the weeds, right? Essentially, our proven hiring process is we launch the job description on the front end. The job description will take them directly to a written application. So the application is going to take them off of whatever job forum they're on, Indeed or LinkedIn. Like we will drop JDs into these huge ponds of candidates. Hundreds of people, thousands of people will see that job description, but only hundreds of them will click on the link and apply through our link, right? So that's a huge filtration system that kicks a lot of people out. Then we take them to the written application. The written application is quick. It's easy for them to fill out, but the written application takes them directly to a skill assessment. The skill assessment is where we generally see 80% of candidates plus stop the process. They literally just won't submit it because the skill assessment is hard. Back to marketing here, Brett. One thing we know about marketing funnels, the greater the friction in the funnel, the higher the quality of lead, right?
Yep.
Same thing with hiring. So we make it hard. It should
so what does
be
that, what does
hard
that look
to
like? Because
apply.
I know sometimes so it was one thing we do as an agency is we give them a fake project, right? Here's a made up client. And here's a bunch of scenarios. What are you going to do in those scenarios, right? How are you going to optimize this? And then we grade those answers. Is that kind of what you're recommending here?
Pretty much. Yep. It's 2 to 3, I call them crunchy questions that, again, your A player, ideal candidate will have no problem answering. Why? because they've done this at like 3 other companies already. This is as natural to them as breathing. And in fact, they fucking love it because they're such a nerd, right? They get to the end of the skill assessment and they're like, oh my God, that was so fun. I cannot wait for this job. Most people, 80% of people will say, this is hard. This is going to take too long. I don't know how to do this. I don't want to do this. And they will, again, self-select out.
Perfect.
So that's the skill assessment.
See ya.
Yep. It's a big one. Right. From there, we'll then start interviews, right? So we'll do a culture interview, a skill interview, reference interviews, and then we'll finally close them on the job.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Really, really helpful. So we've kind of set our vision, our strategic vision, and kind of map that out. And we're, now talking about hiring. And let's talk a little bit about what that environment looks like that allows an A player to shine. I know you've touched on a handful of things, but if we want a performance-based culture, what are some things we need to have in place for that to be true? So I'm assuming, you got the job scorecard for when you hire somebody, probably a scorecard ongoing where you can show someone, how are you doing and how can you do better type of thing.
Yep. And again, it comes back to onboarding. So we take that same exact job scorecard. And then on the very first day of that new person starting their job, I still personally do a culture onboarding call, right? Because that's how important this call is. In this culture onboarding call, we cover vision, mission, right? Your V2 mom. This is when you would share that. This is your vision, your mission, your core values. This is the team they're going to be working with. This is the lay of the land. And this is your performance and cultural expectations, right? So I'll say things like show up on time to meetings and be on camera.
Yep.
Do I have to say that? Most clients would be like, no, they're A players. I shouldn't have to say that. Set expectations, right? This is client. Think of your team onboarding again, like client onboarding. We know how important it is for successful client onboarding to have an incredible experience, to set realistic expectations, and to understand, especially in a service industry like agencies, Brett, what do they need to bring to the table in order to be successful in this partnership? That is exactly what you're doing on day one. Here's us. Here's what success looks like in your role, job scorecard. And then the third and critical component to this conversation is a transfer of ownership. The single greatest characteristic of high performance teams is radical ownership. So here's your job scorecard. This is yours now. These are not my targets. These are your targets. These are not my challenges to solve, my daily tasks to fix for you. These are your tasks, your challenges, your growth opportunity, your level up. And in fact, the next 2 weeks of training that we're about to launch into for you, that's yours as well. You're responsible for becoming the version of you, for gaining the knowledge that you need to hit these targets and achieve success as measured by this job scorecard. Welcome to the team.
So good. So good. And some people would hate to hear that message, right? But the right people, it will light them up. They will love that. So do you even kind of, you hint about some of those things, I would assume, in the hiring process as well, to kind of weed out the wrong people?
Yeah, again, the hiring process is built for that ideal candidate, the person who should get lit up when we then deliver that message in onboarding. If by some reason somebody has snuck through the hiring process and like pulled a fast one on me, right? The onboarding is also intense. From the culture call, we launch them into what we call the 14-day boot camp. And I tell them the first 14 days on this role are going to be intense. Why? Because I want to stress test you. Because the person that I met in the interviews is not the person I'm hiring. That is like a shiny, blowed up version of the person that I just hired. The person I actually hired is a person who's 6 months from now, whose kid is sick and they left the stove on and the mailman is here and there's a client fire exploding. And how do they show up to the team meeting? That's the person I hired. I want to know who that person is. And I don't want to have to wait 6 months to figure it out, right?
Tell me more about that. That is great because, well, we've made the mistake in the past of making like the first 2 weeks, month, just so easy. Like, and part of it is like, we want to be a great place to work. We want to challenge people. We want to coach people. And like, sometimes we made it just way, way too easy, almost boring. That has since changed. But how do you stress test in those first 2 weeks? What does that look like?
So I want to draw a difference between hard and disorganized.
Okay.
What does an A player want? An A player doesn't mind a high pressure environment. A player doesn't mind drinking out of a fire hose in terms of like learning new information. An A player doesn't mind throwing themselves into something, getting their hands dirty and figuring it out. What doesn't set people up for success though, is again, kicking them into the deep end. So we're just throwing you into things with no structure, with no organization, with no guidance around what you should be looking at, what you should be focused on, or what success looks like. So our responsibility as leadership is to develop that structure. So that's what we call the 14-day boot camp. And it's that blow by blow of like, for the first 14 days, you're going to train on these things with these people. You're going to watch these meetings, shadow these client calls, read these books, right? Like we're going to give you all of the information that you need. We're going to front load it. And at the end of 2 weeks, the goal is that you are functional, not that you're exceptional, that you're functional in the role. And I'm going to download any and all information into your brain that you need in order to become functional. It will be hard, but we've got your back, right? Also included in that 14-day bootcamp is daily check-ins with their manager, end of week check-ins with me, a 14-day check-in around where are you at? Where are you struggling? How are you feeling after your first 2 weeks, right? So there's structure to it. But that doesn't make it not hard. It just makes it hard with support. Yeah.
Man, it's so good. So we are running out of time a bit, but I do want to talk about kind of the final two things.
Yeah.
The how are we coaching someone and helping them really grow and reach peak performance? And then when do we fire people as well? So let's talk about both of those. What tips or insights can you share on the coaching and helping someone level up?
Yeah. So the first thing is if you want a high performance team, coach them. Every high performer has a coach. Michael Phelps has a coach. And I hear clients say a lot, like, if I'm hiring A players, why should I have to manage them? Management is coaching.
A coach. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. Right. And so I have not just coaching as in an end of quarter performance review. We do active growth coaching on a weekly or bi-weekly basis with our team members. So every week for new team members, every other week for veterans, they are sitting down with their direct manager. And what I am working on, again, included, I'll just send Brett, like, I have like SOPs and tools and templates for literally all of this. I'm just going to give it to your people. Does that work?
Amazing. Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So that includes in there like a script and a one-on-one template for how I run these meetings, right? But essentially, I am taking the last 1 to 2 weeks of their performance in the role, and we're using it as data. Where did you do well? Where could you have done better? What are you going to do differently moving forward? What are you struggling with? What's blocking you? I have a lot of clients who have a lot of fear around giving constructive feedback. But you're a coach. Constructive feedback is literally your job. What you're afraid of is demotivating someone. What you're afraid of is making them feel bad. But that has to do with the culture, not the feedback. If the culture says that you getting feedback means you've done something wrong, then I'm going to be afraid to give feedback or receive feedback. If instead feedback is an act of service and coaching to help every single person on this team level up all the time, I have team members coming into those meetings being like, what could I do better? This is what I struggled with. How would you tackle this? I feel like I really botched this meeting. They're looking for it. They're leaning into it because they recognize it for what it is, which is an act of love of service, and they want to get better, right? So again, like this is where we get into the less tangible side of team development, which is like, what's the culture that you've built around growth and feedback and failure? How does your team respond to failure? How do you respond to failure? If we can control the cultural context, then every single day, my team is showing up looking for an opportunity to grow. My job is to just hold up the mirror and say, hey, here's your next gap. Here's your next opportunity. Grow this way.
Yeah. It's so good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the F word, firing. So when is it time to fire and move on from somebody? What insights can you share with us there?
Yeah. So if we've done all the rest of this stuff correctly, then firing becomes actually a pretty easy process. We've got a job scorecard. We gave it to them on day one. We transferred ownership over those targets to them. We aligned their goals with company goals. We've coached them every single week, and we've established a regular rhythm where if there's a gap in performance, we're immediately calling it out, offering feedback, and trying to correct it. What then happens if that person is still not able to perform? We have an immediate conversation. And it's a very simple conversation that says, hey, this is the job scorecard. We covered this on day one. This is your job scorecard. We covered that on day one. and you're performing down here. Help me understand. What do you need for you? Again, radical ownership stays with them. For you to close this gap. And what do you need for me to be successful in that? Right? So it's a growth coaching conversation to start, where I call that the PEP, the personal elevation plan, right? And that is, hey, as soon as I see a gap, I'm going to call it out, and we're going to co-create a game plan for you to close that gap and take radical ownership for doing so. Then if I don't see that they've closed that gap, then we'll escalate to a PIP. That's the last warning conversation of like, hey, to be clear, you cannot have this job if you're not meeting the expectations outlined in the job scorecard. So again, help me understand, why haven't I seen the change, and what needs to change in order for you to be successful? Because we both want you to be successful here.
So the PIP, that's the personal improvement plan, right? So
Correct.
this is where you got to improve here, else this is going to fit. And my guess is, Jhana, like if you're a company and you're leading someone through this process, after the PIP, some people are going to make it. A lot of people are going to be like, yeah, this price isn't right. The firing is not going to be a surprise to anybody at that point. You go through that process, it's going to be a pretty natural next step for you and for the person you're firing.
It's not a surprise. And what you'll actually see is people will just quit. That phrase, manage up or manage out, credit to Layla Hermosi for teaching me that one. When you've done a great job of building a high performance, high pressure environment, people who don't like that, who don't want that, who don't want to be held accountable to constant growth and constant targets will leave. Yeah. They'll literally just leave.
Which is A-okay. Even better, right? Than having to fire.
Best case scenario. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is so good. And one thing I'll share too, and we've had our ups and downs as an agency when it comes to ops and hiring and firing and things like that. But what I've also found too, because I think there's this fear that business owners have too about firing. I can't think of a single time that we fired someone at OMG where I've had outrage from the team. Almost always it's like, yeah, I saw that coming, right? Or yeah, we got that. We did have to go through a couple of rounds of layoffs as an agency about 18 months ago. That sucked, and that sucked bad. A lot of agencies and a lot of e-com brands had to do that. So I did get pushback there. People were like, how could you let this person go? I'm like, I know it sucks. But the firing piece, I've never had anybody like, how could you? I mean, maybe the person getting fired, but like everybody else was like, yep, saw that. Maybe you're a little bit late.
You want me to offer you a reframe so that even that person
please
is on board with it? And guys, this is coming from me messing this up so many times because I really care about my team. I do, right? And so I don't want to fire them. I don't want to hurt them. Oh my God, maybe they're going to get better. I'll give them just another month. And then we all know where that ends anyway. Yeah. Here's the reframe I will offer you. Your job as a business owner is to create a vehicle for growth. Growth for you, growth for your clients, growth for your team. People deserve to be successful in their roles. They deserve to be able to grow with your business. And if they are in a role where they cannot be successful or where their pathway for growth has diverted from yours, then it is an absolute act of love and service to let them go and find the other opportunity where they will be successful, that does get them to their goals. They deserve that. It is, in fact, selfish to let your own emotional discomfort at the conversation keep them in a place where they cannot be successful. Yeah. So when I show up to a firing conversation, that's the lens that I bring. And guess what? I still get coffee every month with like half the people I've fired because they're so grateful and I'm so grateful. And we love each other so much. And they've found another job opportunity or started a business, right? And they've become these incredible next level versions of themselves. And all we did when we fired them was determine that, hey, the next version of you can't be unlocked here. Right. And that's okay. That's so okay. But it's time for us to part ways.
And understanding, that people desperately want to be successful.
They do.
They know that they're not being successful with your company if they're in this
especially
position.
If you've got a job scorecard.
Especially if you've been going through this process, then they really know. And they really know, right? And one story that I heard, this was in the book Radical Candor, which is one of my favorites because I'm not naturally a candid person. So that book really helped me. But I love the story between Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive. And Steve would ask Johnny, like, hey, did you give this feedback to your teammate? Did you tell them this isn't good enough? And John would be like, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings or whatever. And Steve would say, no, Johnny, you don't want to be nice. You're just vain and you want people to like you, right? It's like, you got to give people the feedback. And of course, we don't have to put on our Steve Jobs, and show up just the way he did, because that's not our personalities. But it is one of those things to say, like, the frame you gave, it's actually not kindness if you're, and maybe it's actually selfish if you're holding on to somebody when you need to let them go so they can go not be miserable somewhere, and be successful somewhere. So,
or you're holding on to that piece of feedback that you're unwilling to tell them, when it's actually just depriving them of the opportunity to know what the gap is so they can do something about it.
Yeah. So good. We could keep going. You've got me fired up for operations. I'm not even an operations guy. This is amazing, Jhana. This is
believe it?
So good. So definitely share with us the SOPs. I'll get that out. We'll put that in the show notes. Anybody can get that. But also, I'm confident there are people listening that are just like, I don't need the SOPs. I just want to work with Jhana and her team. So how can people connect with SpyGlass Ops? What does that look like? Who are you right for? Talk to us about working with you.
Yeah, beautiful. So guys, the best way to connect with me is actually on Instagram. And if you will add it into the show notes, but I'm just going to give you guys my entire resource vault. So DM me the code word vault, click on the link in the show notes, DM me on Instagram. That's the best way to get in touch.
And what is your Instagram handle?
That is at the Jhana Lee. So JHANALI, Jhana Lee.
Awesome. And so DM you the word vault.
Correct.
You get the whole thing there,
whole shebang.
all the goods. Man, okay. That's amazing. Jhana, this has been fantastic. I can't wait to review this, share this with my team. Really, really good. I know this is going to create transformational change for people that listen and apply, and especially those that get your details and or work with you guys. But you guys are really, you're geared to work with brands, work with agencies, work with just service-based companies. Like, what you can work with just about anybody, correct?
Yeah, we work with online-based startups, right? So e-com brands, given that you're running your business off technical systems, remote team building, that's the stuff we really specialize in.
Awesome. Jhana Lee, ladies and gentlemen, at the Jhana Lee on Instagram. Connect with her there. DM her at the word vault, and you'll get all the goods. I'll also put stuff in the show notes as well. So with that, Jhana, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thanks for bringing the energy. Thanks for bringing the insights.
Thank you, Brett.
It was fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. And thank you for tuning in. As always, we'd love to hear from you. What would you like to hear more of on the show? If you've not done so, please leave us a review on iTunes. And if you know somebody who's struggling with ops, share with them this episode. And with that, until next time, thank you for listening.